This is a test of the scuff warning system. This is a test and only a test. Matt, are you scuffed?
I hopefully am not scuffed.
You're
You
not
don't sound
scuffed.
scuffed. Oh
No,
yeah,
that's
hey.
amazing. Hi, everybody. Lunch and Lore is back. The last time we did this show, I think we had the original art. It's been, God, I don't know how long it's been. Anyways, we're going to spend our lunch break doing nerd shit.
Yeah.
That's it. That's pretty much what the show is. Speaking of which, we are still figuring out what the show is going to be. Yeah. Like this first episode, Matt was like, all right, what's the plan? I said, the plan is to press the stream button and then figure out the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it live. Matt, what's up? How you be?
I'm pretty darn good. I went to the doctor today. I've been suffering from a little bit of a knee issue, and it's prolonged long enough to where I listened to my wife finally and made an appointment, and thankfully got in to see someone yesterday. Also, I don't know if I mentioned it a while back, but I got my finger operated on a while ago because I had a benign tumor, and it might be coming back. So I'm kind of monitoring some things, figuring some stuff out. So, maybe I'll be doing some more surgery, or maybe I'll just be dying. Who the hell knows?
I'll die.
Yes, I'll die.
Yeah. Aging is great. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10.
Speaking of aging, how are you?
Shut up, nerd. I'm good. I got a little kitten climbing all over me. So, there's that.
Yeah, you got that going for you.
Yep. Chrissy has a really important, really cool work conference all week.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm super excited for her. That's great. Ow. Oh, cat. Ow, cat. Yeah, and like the content machine is firing. I don't know if it's firing on all cylinders, but ignition is definitely occurring. There's things are exploding, which I think is how an engine is supposed to work. So I'm satisfied.
Well, that's lovely. I'm glad that you are have such a supportive and engaging spouse in that regard.
Yep. All right.
What I'm also excited about.
What
you were just about to do.
But you were doing it better. You do it.
Nope. No. I like all right. All right is a great way to segue.
All right. So we lunch and lore. We spent an hour talking about the lore of our various projects, mostly Anacra, but I'm sure some coriander will work its way in there.
Yeah, why not?
I'm sure, if we ever eventually get to Excylum and Aphthema, that'll work its way in there whenever.
So bad. Oh my God, I want that so bad.
Matt's projects that are in like other continuities and other IP, we'll get to that. But first off, we don't have a format for this show, so let's talk about the show format. Here's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
We have our topic, and today's topic is going to be Irelek, the monastery in the world of Anacra on the Western continent. I'll pull up a map of the Western continent at some point. That'll be cool. So every single episode will have our main topic. But I think we should also talk about channel news, and we should have a section for audience questions, which some of these are your ideas. I'm just saying them out loud. So, what?
No, I just love it. It's great.
I mean, where's the lie?
I miss doing this.
Where's the lie? All right, so we'll make that formal, and I think I'll do that thing on like sports talk shows where there's a sliding bar with all the different topics, and as they switch topics, like one of them slides up and gets highlighted and all that cool shit. I'll probably work. Okay, well that's fine. I'll probably try to build something like that, but I'm thinking news and updates, audience questions, and then main topic.
Hard agree. That sounds lovely.
Cool. But we're not going to really do that today because in the future, I will be soliciting questions in like a organized format with a designated place for it and taking them and then
what happened to you?
Acting like someone who's actually competent. But that that day is not today. Today
People don't
fight.
come here for competence. That's not what Cast.
We don't have a competence emote. We have a scuff emote.
Exactly. Everyone knows what they came here for when they signed up for this.
Yeah, so that's roughly the plan. I'm going to see if I can find the map of like the actual whole world.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it.
So I can
send it to you. But
sweet. You know what we should do actually, because we're figuring ourselves out right now. I don't know why Cheese is so obsessed with crawling on me at the moment. Here's what you're going to do. Do you have the map up on your screen?
No, but I can get it up right now.
Yeah, so I want you to use Video Ninja to share that screen, and then I'm gonna capture it and
How?
patch it in.
How I do that, Daddy?
Uh,
Show me.
so first
Show
off,
me.
get it open on your screen.
Okay, getting it open.
Mhm.
I should totally open something that is not. And then just like, oh my, what is that? Uh,
Oh, what a shocking
no, I've got it.
calamity!
Do you want? Let's see. I've got two different versions. I've got the one that has just everything I did with the equator and all the basic stuff from.
Hmm.
It's mostly the newer version of the map, and then I have the one that includes a lot of the more current stuff. Like it's a little more cluttered, but it's got more stuff that's relevant.
Open both of them, and we'll
I will
look at
open
both of
both of
them.
them then.
Screw it. Yeah.
Okay, I've got them both open. Now, what do you want?
All right. So in video,
Yeah,
there should be. I don't know. I'm directing right now, so I don't really know what
yeah,
it looks
yeah.
like on your side. Look for a button that says share a screen with others.
I'm looking. Here we go. Share a screen with others. There we go.
Yeah.
Perhaps I should put them over here. I'll move this. Hold on. Moving things. I'll move them over here. I'll make them big. Yeah, sing my angel. Sing my angel of beauty. Oop, 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 oop. Okay, and go with a window, entire screen, screen 2, share. And we can do a little zoom.
Okay.
This
Sweet.
is the older one.
Well,
This
hold
is
on,
the
hold
one that
on.
has
Let me let the audience
oh,
see. Because now
okay.
I do. It has popped up here, but I want to. I'll do this less jank over time. This will be
Okay.
Matt share, and we'll
Okay.
make it 1600 by 900. And I'll paste this in.
I'm dead.
All right, cool. Yeah, awesome. It worked. Chat can now see
Yay.
your stuff. Make sure you hide like the drugs and stuff.
The drugs are mostly hidden.
All right, good. That's mostly hidden is good enough.
So again, we've got this sucker here, which this is kind of like
Mm-hmm.
from when I was asked to make it, this was what we did. But now I
Mm-hmm.
have another one here where this is like includes like Book of Dawn, like where we are in Book of Dawn. We've got like the Eye of
Mm-hmm.
Academy, things like that. So there's a couple of little things that have been kind of like popped in based off of
Mm-hmm.
work going on. But this is effectively the world map, although this is way more current as of when we were doing
Right.
stuff.
Right. And you know what? I'm gonna share my screen because I have the same power, and I'm gonna share the Worldographer version that we have.
There you go. We can have
Worldographer.
Google map.
Wait, I don't want to share tab. I want to share like a completely different program. I can't do that.
I
Oh,
do
here we go.
plan
Application
on
window.
one of these days, once we're a little more set and like, yep, this is how we're gonna land. I want to
Mhm.
make a full blown like for any of you who played Curse of Tamarind with me, I made a map for that, and it was a rather nice looking one, and it
It was a sexy map.
it
A
was
sexy
just
map.
this little area down here. It was like part of the Mall of Tamarind, and it was the north the northern center, as well as some of the more western portions. But it was just a little chunk of Tamarind, probably like a full quarter of Tamarind. Um,
All right.
so doing it for the whole world would be quite an undertaking, which I may get
It would
to
take a
eventually.
lot. All right. Do you see my
I
screen?
might have a reason. I do. I don't think they do, but I do. Ah, there we go. Now they do.
Yep, they do. All right. I just didn't. I was like about to show it, and then you were doing stuff, and I was like, well, it would be rude for me to, Okay, so this is the map circa, what is it, 6991. So this is era Book of Dawn era, rather than, and it's not even fully updated for Book of Dawn era. There's still some incorrect stuff.
Close enough.
But effectively, this is the western continents of Badura and Kiaz. And so this is post Tamrian, this is post Debruk. This is neither of these would be here during Quest for the Book of Dawn.
Yes, that's correct.
So, Irilek, where did we have it? We've moved it a couple of times. Where did we have it?
As of right now, you can't.
And let me know if I need to switch to yours.
No, you're good. We can use yours right now. So
okay.
You see right there where you've got it's gone now. There we go. You see where you've got Londakar?
Mm-hmm.
There's that island to the northwest of Londakar. That is where we have the Irilek Isles currently in timeline posted.
Okay. Ooh, that's sick because that means that Teteo, the Pearl Confederation, and Kalaro, these island nations here that do a lot of trade with Abaratum, they would be the first point of contact not only to Telmakalon, but to the Irlek Isles. Let me just put a label on that real quick, shall I?
Yes, please. I also had a question, mate. We
Fire away.
originally, because we thought that to the uh due east of Ubadin, on
Mm-hmm.
Piaz, also I guess you could say also east of Helsia, that was where at one point we had planned on putting the Irlek Isles, and it was
Correct.
enshrouded within the Gray Sea. Now
Mm-hmm.
we've moved Irlek Isles over to the western point of the western continents, and so I'm wondering,
Mm-hmm.
should the Gray Sea then shift over there? Or another idea I had, because you know how like we have certain seas that are connected through the land. This is a considerable amount of land to try and connect through.
Mm-hmm.
But we either could change the name, have some kind of a connection, or just make it to where the Gray Sea just kind of wraps around. Usually they're kind of in their own pocket. So really, if it's staying a sea, it should
Mm-hmm.
just be a different sea, since it's unless there's some characteristic that is shared between the two, it would be so far away that
Well,
it would then
let's
turn
let's
into an
start
ocean.
from first. Let's start from first principles here. Why does Irlek need to be? When does the Gray Sea start? Is that a post Tamarian thing?
No,
Okay,
no, 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 no.
that's a post Arakura thing, right?
Yes.
All right. So Irlek existed before that happened.
Should we just start at the beginning and follow
Let's we should just start at the beginning. All
let's
right,
just start at the
start
beginning. We've seen where it is. We'll just do that.
Mm-hmm.
Long
Okay.
ago in a distant land. No, it's not that distant. Everyone.
You know, there's actually another thing that I need to do here. I need to pull up the timeline. Again,
That's a
the more
great
stop
idea.
drinking my water, cat. You have your own water. All right, let me pull up the timeline.
Is this the one on World Anvil?
Yeah, I'll post it to you.
History of Anacra timeline. I got it. Right here.
Correct. It's that timeline. Whoop. Okay.
Glorious.
So we
Got
have
it.
this is all post dawn. So you have the dawn era, and then you have the day begins, which is the end of the Four Kingdoms, and let's see, end of the Four Kingdoms,
what?
or the beginning of the Four Kingdoms.
Thank
Sorry.
you. I was gonna say
My brain is full of yeah. So we have the I think Irelek. Okay, so I have Irelek 78 years after the end of the Dawn era, like the first century of the Dawn. Things that happened before that are the settling of the Connacht Vale, and 10 years prior is the descent of the Sovereigns. So, like, there's 68 years or so of Fae survivors and people who are descendants of the Dawn just sort of figuring out what the hell is going on in the world. Then after that, the Sovereigns and the Titans and the Dragon Gods all show up, and they start instructing and uplifting the mortal species.
I think that makes sense, because you figure we had basically 5,000 years of, hey, we get to just kind of do whatever we want and have fun. And in the last basically 100 years, or no, I guess it was 1,000 years, because the incursion happened in 4060. So the last 1,000 years, there was just nothing but war and strife on a scale that had never before been seen in Anacra. And then towards the end was when all the big events started happening. We had the fall of Laminius, we had the coming of the dragons, we had the Infernals that were at one point doing so much that it seemingly their victory was at hand, and then it just completely flipped a 180. And so I feel like it makes sense to have, because what is 70-ish years compared to the millennias that had come prior, especially considering this was a time of both peace and confusion, where everything that before was so mutable and changeable is now just so firm, finite, and there's still obviously there's a massive amount of resources. This is a whole world with multiple different kingdoms in it, where it's filled with all matter of flora, fauna, creatures, and magics. And so I feel like this is mostly like a time where everyone's kind of getting used to their new forms and figuring out how to walk. Basically, it's their infancy.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that when the Sovereigns descend about a decade later, which again is for them, I wouldn't say the blink of an eye, but they had a plan. I think from the get-go, they already had a plan for Irelek. And by the time it was then incepted, this had already been in the making for quite a while.
All right. So the purpose of Irelek, our original lore was it was founded by genies of all four elements, because genies are originally they were servants of the Titans, of the elementals. They are the most creative, the most sentient, usually the
They're
most
the
like
closest, I think, that we have to how things used to be. These are
Mhm,
entities that can grant wishes, which kind of mimics that. I mean, it's their connection to dawn that allows them to do so, and it kind of mimics how
mhm,
things used to be. They and themselves have very mutable forms. Like you said, they're made of the very elements, but also taking a somewhat humanoid shape, very much like the sovereigns themselves do.
mhm. And the original lore that I had says that they created a sanctuary to bring chosen mortals to study the arts, magic, combat, and natural philosophy in order to share that knowledge with the world. So the idea was they bring people to Irilek, they teach them, because again, in addition to the people like the elves, the first elves and fae, they existed for thousands of years in this paradise, and now suddenly they have finite form. But there's also all these
Mhm.
new species that are totally new,
By the way, mate,
humans
I'm
and
seeing that
such.
there's a secret history down here that should have more of our information, but I can't open it. Do you have access to
Mm,
secret history?
I do, and that's secret, and I'm not showing it on stream, but I'll make sure that you have access to it.
I was gonna say, because I think it's relevant for, for what we're doing. But yes, if it has to
Mhm.
do with Project Secret undercover mode, then yes,
Well,
definitely.
most of the secret history is actually things that happen after the current timeline.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
what's
yeah.
most of
Okay.
what's in there is things that, some things that have not yet come to pass.
Hence Project Secret Ultra mode. So I totally get
Exactly.
you.
So, um, from first principles, is that still the case? That the idea was there's all these new species, so we're going to bring some of them to Irilek, teach them fire, the wheel, harvesting crops, but more advanced things, art, science, etc. And then once they have that knowledge, we're going to send them back to their homelands. And again, this is the original purpose, the pre-death of Arakura purpose. We're going to
Yeah.
bring them here, we're going to train them up, we're going to send them back out, and they're going to be leaders amongst their own people.
Yeah. So I agree. I feel like, and again, this is absolutely mutable and we can change it as needed. But I
Mm-hmm,
feel like each sovereign had something they wanted to bring to the table with this. And
mm-hmm,
we would have obviously, the point of training them up and sharing knowledge, that's total sin. Like absolutely, the father of progress and, beefing up civilization would absolutely be like, we need to make sure to prepare these mortals for the future. Um, I feel like Vindor always being associated with defense and more and militarization would never want to have their I mean, because I feel like in a sense, whether they actually have that like hand directed care for it, the sovereigns would see everything in Anacra as their children, as theirs, and so they wouldn't. We would have Vinder who would want to make sure they're trained up militarily, that they are knowing how to defend themselves in case there was ever an incursion again. The vast quantities of people that are suffused within Anacra wouldn't be entirely defenseless. So you want to make sure that they have a means of being able to defend themselves. Sin would want to make sure that they are getting into study so they can spread that knowledge across the world. I feel like in my mind, um, at least Arakura, if not, I don't really think Liban would much care for that, but I could see that would have it as sort of an arc. Would be like if everything goes, you know, to heck. Um, they have a panic button to where we have one of everything here hidden on this island, and if ever we needed to hide it away and cloister it away, if we had another invasion from the outer dark and everything was lost, Irilek would be safe, and we could use this as the stronghold, the springboard to bring Anakra back anew again. Does that kind of track with you?
Okay, that is a great idea. There is only one problem with that idea. And the only
Yes.
problem with that idea is that my cat just climbed on my keyboard and closed my video window. Um,
No.
all right. So I've fixed some stuff, but essentially you said yes and the and was each
Yes,
of the
and
four sovereigns has a specific purpose, and Arakura is to some degree using this like that seed bank they have in the Arctic or whatever.
exactly.
Um,
Yes, exactly that.
mhm. And Sin would have like, so are they all treating it like an arc, or do they just each have? Because like if they're all treating it like an arc, Sin would have like instructions on how to reinvent civilization here. You know, like inscribed on something that can't be destroyed. complete instructions on how to make fire, and complete instructions on how
Yeah.
to forge this, and like all that stuff, so that if everything fell but you had access to this, you could rebuild civilization.
I think the yes and is exactly
Mm-hmm.
that. It's
Mm-hmm.
originally all of the sovereigns came together and said, we can't let this happen again. What can we do? And one of the things they developed was this idea to create a safe space, like a demi-plane of sorts, to where it would be difficult to access it. And they would have their maybe not most powerful. I'm not saying genies are the most powerful of their servants, but definitely
The
the
most
most capable,
learned. Yeah,
the
the
most
most
learned.
learned, the most capable, I think, is smart.
And they would be making sure to enforce, because like, you would have the sovereigns with initially a direct hand in this, but of course the sovereigns were pulling back, especially after what was to come between the
Mm-hmm.
the infernals that remained and Arakura. But before they lost their hands on this, they made sure they had their servants in place to dictate and direct their power here. And I think that it would
Mm-hmm.
have been an arc of sorts to make sure, like you said, we would have uh the civilization starters would be boom, we've got all that here. We've got the
Mm-hmm.
militarization starters. Boom, we know how to set up, with tactics and warfare and weapons. We have every single bit of flora, fauna, all the various different creatures that inhabit here. And I think in my mind, we would have from because Arakora, at least how I see it, or not Arakora, sorry, Liban is one of the uh, because of the way that they themselves are somewhat formless. I mean, they're water, unless they're out of their element, they're just one with water, and they're almost imperceivable unless they feel like taking on a form. And so I
Mm-hmm.
feel like they would be ensuring that the secrets of the four, well, five kingdoms would be kept here. So that way, no matter what, even if everything went to heck, you'd be able to come to this place and basically restart Anacra.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like a fail safe for them.
Okay, so it's almost like a two-purpose structure. One is the school, which is to share knowledge and then disseminate that knowledge across the world. And
Yeah.
originally, before the death of Arakura, the idea was most people do not stay there forever. You go there, you learn, then you leave. You go back to your home civilization and you share what you've learned, so that again, every single tribe can learn how to make fire and how to forge metal and how to plant crops and how to cast spells and just and how to fight and defend yourself. Just like this whole list of skills, just to act as the monolith from 2001, to uplift everybody, teach them how to use tools and more sophisticated things. So you have the people who stay there to teach, who started out as genies. And over time, I think some mortals would stay there to teach, right? They'd be like, you're really good at
Yeah.
teaching. You're going to teach the teachers. You're going to stick around.
Yes.
Um, so you had the school, and then you had the seed. And that's like, they have these secret things. And that purpose is a secret purpose. It's not broadcast. People might
Absolutely.
know, like a tribe might have legends, a culture might have legends because they were founded by people who were brought to Irelek to learn all these things, and they tell stories about this wondrous place that they went and all the knowledge and wisdom and wonders of the place, but they don't learn that there's two of every type of animal on earth down there or whatever. That's
Yeah.
hidden.
Well, because I feel like it's almost like not every other, but many other stories have a very similar kind of MacGuffin where it's like, oh, everything's gone to heck. The bad guys have won, and there's one specific artifact or one specific place, some genus loci that we can go to that either has knowledge to help us, has a super weapon to help us, or it has some kind of big MacGuffin that they don't know what it is, other than the fact that it's been told in stories that it has the reseeding of society or whatnot. And in this case, that's going to be Irlek for Anacra. And I
Mhm.
think it needs to, like you said, not be a secret, but the true aspect of it is a secret. It's mostly just known
Mhm.
as this great, amazing place. Kind of like how there's dragons. Everyone has stories of dragons across the world. Everyone has stories of Irlek, even though it's not called Irlek across the world. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Hmm. And this would be something where, because magic exists, people can be trained in Irelek and go back to their home no matter where they are, no matter where they
Mhm.
end up, right? All right.
Yes.
So it has those two dual purposes. Let's talk about layout. So given that it is a direct work of the sovereigns, even if the sovereigns didn't hang out there, they sort of directly appointed this place. I kind of feel like we have to go with the four elements thing.
Yeah,
And
obviously.
I feel like, and let me know how you think about this. I feel like Irolek is a archipelago. It's not one island; it's a bunch of islands. They're
Yeah,
all very close to
absolutely.
each other, but it's like this cluster of islands. Um,
That was actually, if you want to switch over to my thing, that's how I have it set up on my
yeah,
map.
if I can still get to your thing, okay, I can.
That's fine
Yeah,
if you can't. It's all good.
I can get to it. So I think that this is too big to be Irelek. Um,
It's less of it's less supposed to be that. It's more so I didn't want to put a bunch of little dots because it didn't look good just to put
okay,
a bunch of little
okay,
dots.
yeah.
It's kind of like when you have a map that like it's not all to scale.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you're just making sure that it all kind of fits. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it would definitely be, especially because technically that would never appear on a map. You would never have a map that has
Right, Irelek is
Airlock
secret.
tiles on
It's
there.
not on there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Layout, terrain, archipelago, multiple islands. Let's say they're closely clustered
Yeah.
because it's not like the sovereigns had to say, "Oh, look throughout this whole world. Is there a good place for it?" No, they're like, "Okay, island. They could just
Oh, they
design
would
it,
have
right?
absolutely used the giants, the dwarves, and the
Mhm.
genies to craft this place. Absolutely.
So if you could do that and you were designing it for this purpose, how you had godlike power to shape the islands for this purpose, how would you design it?
There's got to be a volcano. I think that, like you said, we're gonna go with the element
Mm-hmm.
dealio. So I feel like we need to make sure that there is a connection, obviously, to each of
Mm-hmm.
the sovereigns has a hand in designing this, not only for its success but for its
Mm-hmm.
protection. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, a combination of both natural and magical storms spreading out
Mm-hmm.
from the unending ocean and covering all of the seas of Anacra from both Liban
Mm-hmm.
and Vinder is going to go a long way because just straight up, it's going to be difficult to even get there. But beyond that, it is going to be in a demiplane, right? This isn't
Mm-hmm.
actually on the mortal realm or any other of the kingdoms. This is going to be tucked away, much like the what do you call them? The gyres.
The refuges.
Hmm.
The refuges. The gyre lies at the heart of one of the refuges.
Yeah,
Mhm. So Irelek is not in the mortal world.
I mean
It's
that's what I would think would make
I
sense because why would they want to leave it on the mortal realm?
right. They didn't have to. I feel like if the waveform collapsed for some reason, it would end up on the mortal world, right?
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's not a totally separate dimension, but it's inaccessible from the mortal world because it's like in a pocket dimension, but that pocket dimension has its roots, if you will, in the mortal world. So it's access, like if you sail there, you won't get there unless you have the Silmaril on the prow of your ship, like unless you
Yeah.
have special extenuating circumstances. But under
Yeah.
those circumstances, you would access it from the mortal world because that has the closest connection to
Oh, yeah. It still has
yeah,
crossing
yeah.
points. Absolutely.
Yeah, the main crossing point is in the mortal world. So here are some things I'm thinking. Volcano, for sure. Surrounded by high cliffs.
Yeah.
So like if you sail up to it, there's this enormous like storm. There are coral reefs trying to get to it.
Uh
Most of the
huh.
time, you get the Valinor experience where if you're not supposed to be there, you just sail. You end up on the other side and you never encounter the
Yes.
islands.
Exactly.
Um, and now some of the islands, it's just my vision of the place, need to be at like water level, but some of them are also extremely tall, like sheer cliffs that make it impossible to assail.
Are we talking about the mortal, like the crossing point on the mortal realm, or are we talking about the demiplane itself, where you're like
uh,
resides in the
I
islands?
don't know. What do you think?
So my thought would be something like a combination of the two. I think that
Mhm.
it should not mirror what it looks like in the demiplane,
Mhm.
in the mortal realm. However, I think, like you said, if it turns out that that plane ever collapsed, I
Mhm.
think there would be an eruption in the mortal world, and then that place would then, because I think there should be an actual volcano there.
Mhm.
And then if it ever were to get separated, it would end up on the mortal realm. Maybe not exactly how it was, but I think
Mhm.
that the volcano it's connected to here would erupt, and then it would be born from that eruption.
Okay. Ooh, I like that. As if it's being created, and then time just accelerates as it catches up.
And I
Okay.
think that the crossing point, at least you, I want your idea on this. I think
Hmm.
that the actual volcano itself, it shouldn't be this big, giant, like obvious, like, oh my gosh thing. I think it should
Hmm.
be this little bubbling pool of magma just above the water. And there's this big, huge opening of lava. And the crossing point is
Hmm.
the lava where you have to take a leap of faith and jump into the lava
Ah,
to cross into it. And if you don't know the right way to get in and you don't do the right
you just
uh
burl.
incantation, you just yeah, it's so basically it's not only knowing the right things, but having the faith to
Hmm.
know that what you're doing is correct. Because it's not like, I mean, you could go to the Gossamer Wood by spinning around 3 times, closing your eyes, and catching a moth, and there's nothing dangerous about that. It just takes forever. But if you get this wrong, you could die. And so
Hmm.
it's a very like the way is closed off to all except those who know it. And even then, like,
Hmm.
do you trust it? You know?
Okay, that's sick. Now, let's say you successfully go through the crossing point, and now you get to see what Irelek looks like. I'm thinking that since the Sovereigns got to custom design it, 4 main islands with lots of smaller islands. I always like
Yes.
the idea of there being a lot of bridges where not all the
Yes.
islands you can walk between, but many of them like just this beautiful architecture that lets you walk from place to place. Uh, 4 main islands, let's say like a whirlpool or something. What should be in the middle of them? Either
Yeah,
a
I think that
big
makes
temple
sense.
building or like a whirlpool.
So how because I mean we can do whatever we want here. This is
We
supposed to be
can.
one of the
No,
last
we can.
remnants of how things
Hmm.
used to be. So I kind of feel like bridges slash chains. I've always loved the idea, which we don't get to do a lot on the mortal world because of the
Hmm.
limitations of the mortal world. But to
Hmm.
me, like you said, it's a combination of all 4 elements. So why wouldn't we have an enormous whirlpool beneath? Which I think that when you arrive, I think it would be really cool if you get spat out the whirlpool. But regardless, and there's an incredibly huge whirlpool at the bottom, and then you
Hmm.
have these floating islands connected by these chain bridges, where it's like these bridges that both connect and like anchor them to their positions. You know what I mean?
So
Where
the
you have this
islands are
combination.
not, they could move otherwise, or they do move.
I think that we have that. I mean, we have a whirlpool and we have islands, chained to each other. I
Hmm.
think that that sounds pretty awesome, and especially if it's meant to be defensible, if
Hmm.
the islands themselves are changeable and those that are in
Hmm.
charge of them know how to work them, then anytime that if there ever was an attempted, assault on this place, uh,
Hmm.
just by obviously things that fly are gonna, be able to have a lot of issues with it. But I feel like having it be mutable, changeable, and you can either have them all just separated or they could come in for one giant defensible
Mega
position, like by
fortress. I'll pull in, and
exactly.
then stone walls rise from the water. Just.
Well, because we were even talking about how we have those giant cliffs that make
Hmm.
entry almost impossible, and it'd be really cool if those islands, almost like if Irelek is like a giant octopus, but instead of an
Hmm.
octopus, you have the center volcano with the high, impossible to assuage cliffs, having
Hmm.
these really amazing ethereal chain bridges that connect all the various islands like tentacles,
Hmm.
and those can either be arranged out to ensure to give them all the proper space to work and do their experiments and make sure that they have the proper space for training grounds, but then in times of need, if it was ever to happen, they'd suck back in and almost turtle up and everything
Hmm.
would be protected.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point where we need to start with genie architecture and go from there. Like
Mhm.
if you imagine a noble Jin's palace, a noble Jin's sky palace, and a Marid's underwater castle, and a like we're not going to go 100% these things because the Earth Island isn't the Great Dismal Delve. It's not this giant
Yeah.
underground maze in the tradition of D&D. A lot of it is above ground because this is about the mingling of the elements, right? But
Mhm.
just start with this fantastic magical genie level architecture, make it all beautiful, make it all very integrated into nature, except when it's just going absolutely batshit, and combine all of that together. I love the idea that they these chains can like drag everything in together to form Irelek Zord.
You're like Zord. Actually, Mama Shimada in chat had a really cool idea if the whirlpool like kind of dumped you in upside down. And by doing the correct permissions of the crossing point, you were able to
Hmm.
enter correctly rather than, let's say you somehow survive the trip. If we're saying that you can still go through at all, I
Hmm.
kind of feel like if you don't know the right words, you just end up in this, you know, this terrible whirling pool of magma.
hmm The way that usually the way that I think of these things is that they're layered. So let's say you don't know the right words, but you've come up with some sort of magical BS that allows you to hotwire and enter,
Hijack it.
but
Uh-huh.
you still don't have the password. Then it's like, well, you didn't get boiled, but you just ended up in this featureless ocean because you still don't have the next layer of permission.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? That's usually how I do
absolutely.
these things. Okay. So that's our overall layout. Let's talk about all of this as if it is pre-death of Arakura. All right, because the vast
Yes.
majority of this was all constructed pre-death of Arakura. Um,
Yes.
so there are the secret seed vaults, and it's not just seeds; it's like the seeds of civilization, right?
Yes.
All the like, here's what all the here's history in case you lose the
Here's
history of the
history.
world, you know.
Yes.
Um, but they would have lots of different facilities all over these islands. They would have fields on Arakura's island with like crops for growing, huge gardens. Not only does it have all these different plants, but they have to teach people how to raise these plants.
Yeah.
Um, so they have that. They have animals, so they have to have open pastures where you can learn how to breed and tame animals. You would need workshops where you can learn how to work with fire, how to work with metal. You would need classrooms where you can be taught how to read and how to write, and more, again, advanced topics, but we are literally starting with the basics. You would have temples where people would learn how to pray, how to achieve inner peace. You would have dojos and barracks and training grounds. You'd also have to have living quarters where all the people who do these things live and work. But at first, at least, like the further you get from the starting point of the closer you get to the origins of Irelek, the more supernatural it is.
Yes.
Because at the very beginning, it's almost all just like genies, right? It's genies running shit.
Yeah.
Uh, and
Wait, what
they
did you have after farms before temples? I was starting to write it down as you were
pastures for animals.
pastures. That's it.
Yeah. Workshops for and forges and carpentry shops, like for learning crafts and arts. Places to learn medicine and biology. Places to learn magic. And again, like the it's not Ioth Academy. It's, yeah, they can teach advanced magic as well, but a lot of what they teach focuses very heavily on like, this is what magic is. These are the different forms of energy that flow through the world and how they interact with each other in the world. And
Yeah.
like, even if we don't keep you here for 200 years to learn how to become a high level wizard, you're going to at least understand what magic is so that your people can develop their own tradition of magic that makes sense, that's based in some sort of reality and meaning.
Yeah.
They have to have docks. They have to teach people how to sail, how to fish, right? They have to teach people
Yeah.
about weather, how to do wood carving. They have to have forests where they can teach those arts. Masonry. They would have to have quarries. They would have to have. I already said classrooms and dojos. Archery, medicine. I said law. They have to teach people about governance and law and how to resolve conflict within a society. They have to teach people about how to handle the dead, both the philosophy and the psychology and how to grieve, but also what to do with dead bodies. Urban design, city planning, defenses. Like, these are all the things that they would teach here. This is like, they would have to teach everything here. And so they would need facilities for many of these things. And as much as possible, you're not just sitting in a classroom getting blathered at. Like, you go out and you do these things.
Then you know what makes sense for me?
Hmm.
I feel like this is going to mirror a lot of the other worlds. Like, for instance,
Mhm.
the underworld. You know how, like, when you go down there, obviously it's huge, but it's more than just huge. It's
Mhm.
infinitesimal depending on where you go. If you get into a
Mhm.
particular uh, zone of influence, yeah, it technically like has these borders, and you can be around this area within the underworld. But when in those
Mhm.
borders, the actual time and space is almost kind of, defunct. I think
Mhm.
that you can have Irelek be a smaller looking area with, like, one main island and a few other, like, you could say 4 to 8 other sub islands. But when you go on
Mhm.
a particular island, it kind of, once you're inside of that zone, it zooms out, and It's far larger to accommodate what is needed. Like you could technically, like in one snapshot, look at the entirety of the Airlock Exile or the Airlock Isles. But as soon as you go on any one particular island, it is a lot bigger on the inside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To accommodate for all of what is needed there.
Oh,
Because you're
granted,
basically having a country or at least county-sized space to work with.
yeah. Now, there's no reason why we couldn't physically have a county-sized series of islands. Like, there's island nations, right?
Well, except for that, you said you wanted Earlek to be much smaller, but yeah.
Oh, sorry. When I said much smaller, I mean like if the scale of the map, which is borked, and I can no longer show you because the cat stepped on my keyboard. That, God, I don't even know how big a hex is on that map. On the next level down, like the map that I have of the Eastern, the one I'm using for War of the Sun, every hex is 90 miles. And this map that I was showing earlier is the next layer up from that. So each of these hexes is like 400, 500, 600 miles.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be small and then it's big on the inside. It could just be enormous.
Right. Now, I'm fine with some of what you just described happening. I'm fine with like little bits of that, especially if they have to do like, oh, we're going to teach you about the other world. But we have our own, the way I imagine it, Irelek is like county sized or small nation sized. But it also has corresponding, it's like a mini version of Anacra. It's like a mini version of the Four Kingdoms. So they have so if the waveform ever collapsed, not only would Irelek Islands be on the mortal plane, but they have their own cloud island of the Sky Kingdom that isn't accessible from the Sky Kingdom. But if the waveform collapsed, it would suddenly be up there. And like if you
so
go
you're
to
saying that each one of these places would then go to its corresponding worlds.
like Irelek has its own Four Kingdom bubble. It's like a mini Four Kingdoms bubble.
And I was actually going to chime on to that when you were saying about all the different plants and animals and things that need to be kept here. That would also mean that, and this makes perfect sense, they would have to be not just bordering crossing points to other realms. Like for instance, if this is in its demi-plane and it borders the border realm, but it also borders the Sky Kingdom, it borders the other world, it borders the underworld. They would also need to border the borders because there's certain plants and there's certain creatures that only live along the borders of two different worlds. And if we would need to preserve that, we would need to have every possible combination of border world that there is here to ensure that all of those various creatures and plants and animals are not lost.
Yeah, it's like mini Anacra.
It's like mini Anacra.
Yeah, like if you take the map of the mortal world and you hit it with a hammer so that it broke into a lot of chunks, and then you shrank the crap out of it, that would basically be Irelek.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I'm adding in a note that Mama Shimada said we should check out the Hawaiian, I'm going to say this wrong, but the Aha Pua system. And this could be a nice bit of reference for us to use when developing this. You might want to take a look at that. I'll add it. If anyone else has any ideas of things they would like us to research, please feel free to drop a name or a link, and I'll go ahead and add it to our sheet.
So let's talk about peoples, because on the one hand, we've done a lot of work in terms of actually specifying it. It's not just a place where you go to learn martial arts and elemental magic. Like it was designed to be, and I think that to a certain degree, Irelek's mission adapted with the death of Anacra. And I think that Irelek was probably changed by the death of Anacra, because if the death of Anacra damaged the firmament, it may also have damaged Irelek.
That would make sense. I mean, well, okay, it would make sense, but remember, it was just her physical form that was taken out, but the actual power and energy of the sovereign isn't gone. Just the mortal, or not the mortal, the avatar is discorporated.
Right. So I think
but
that
I could see that.
Like it wouldn't be, oh, all the rocks are gone now in Irelek. It wouldn't be something like that, right? But it would be like a major earthquake. It's just water now. No more rocks. I'm sorry. Is there calcium in your bones? Calcium is a mineral. No bones.
Oh no, my bone.
And I don't know if I want to get into that just yet, because I kind of more just want to keep that in the back of our heads.
Yeah.
It's going to be important for figuring out what Irelec looks like circa Eye of Academy, circa Quest of the Book of Dawn, and in between.
I think we should, before moving on to Aracora, I think we should finalize. We have 15 minutes left approximately. I think we should hit up the people. What sort of people?
Yes.
Will be find
I
in
was
Irelec?
I was taking 50 words to say that. That's what I was saying. People and organization. So
Yes.
You start with genies, and you go. My only regret is having bonitis. You start with genies.
You son of a gun.
No, it was chat. It was chat. I stole it from chat. Genies, Genasi. Loads of Genasi. Because as various species arrive there, like it's a melting pot. You can have all kinds of different people because it's literally they go. Yeah. They're like, hey, you're going to Moses your culture. Okay. Congratulations. You have been elected Moses.
You have been elected Moses. No angry, stepbrother required, but you are Moses.
Exactly.
Your final graduation is going to be parting a small body of water. So just be aware, prepare for that.
Right. I mean, that depends on where they're from, whether that's going to be part of the practical exam or not. But like, look, you got genies.
You have to either burn a bush, you've got to look at a bunch of snakes, or you got to part some water. I mean, that's what we do. You can figure it out wherever it makes
Can I summon a bunch of bears to kill teenagers for making fun of my bald head? No. It's not part of the curriculum.
Stop asking that one. Who let him in here?
Who got that idea? Anyways, so you start off with genies, and then you could have literally anybody. Dwarves, elves, gnomes, dragonborn. All sorts of species.
Yes.
The problem is genies are hot. So, and there's like...
You mean sexy or like literally like temperature-wise?
Yes, and depends.
But you were going with, oh my God, he's hot.
Oh no, he's hot. So you end up, and also just because of the profound elemental forces on Irelec, it's one of those things where you can either bang a genie and have Genasi kids, or you can just like get pregnant on Irelec and be affected by elemental radiation, and now your kid's a Genasi. Similar things can create tieflings, Azamar, even not Dragonborn, but like Dragonborn sorcerers. You don't have to have somebody who scootily pooped with a dragon. It can just be you were exposed to powerful draconic energy, you were blessed by a dragon, etc. So
just like depending on where you live, there's many people who live in Sharon that they don't have genie blood and they look very different just because of the magic that they grow up around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Earth Ghost got in your blood. You should do cocaine about it. So next time,
Stop making him funnier than he is.
Look, that's the way I'm funny, though. Like, my humor is largely just riffing on other people, right? My storytelling is collaborative. It's largely just riffing off other people. I am I'll politely call myself a creative symbiote rather than a parasite.
I don't know what that says about us, where you come up with stuff and people are like, oh my God, how did you come up with that? You're like, I stole it. Whereas for me, it's like, oh my gosh, what's that from? It's like, me, I made it up. I am the architect of the stupid.
I am the architect of the stupid.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Wait, when did you get glasses? When did that happen?
A while ago. You've seen my glasses.
I know I've seen them, but I thought you didn't start this show with glasses.
No, I just put them on because my source is I stole it. It was for dramatic effect.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was like, wait a minute, what happened to you? You got all bespeckled.
Yep, I've been bespectaclified. All right, so peoples, Genasi, genies, various elemental creatures. The genies would also bring people in who they're like, okay, well, we need someone to cover this. Like, if you're a powerful Ifrit and you're in charge of running Fire Island, you're in charge of the Fire Nation, you're not necessarily going to want to teach Metallurgy 101. You might have at first, but you would have very quickly have gotten some ancestor fire dwarves, right? Not ember dwarves or desert dwarves, but like the actual, I don't remember their name, but like elemental dwarves.
The names are out there. But yes, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, so they would bring in like giants and different types of elementals and different dwarves. So there'd be a lot of supernatural, mystical, elemental themed creatures, and then the genies would also subcontract. They'd be like, I need a fairy to teach fairy shit because that's not my specialty. So there are probably fae who have been there for a very, very, very long time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Question from chat: did fae start out as fae, or were they children of the dawn? The oldest arc fae and many of the original fae were children of the dawn, and then after that, they sort of they reproduce the old-fashioned way, and two, they sort of appear spontaneously because of the inherent animism of Anacra.
Well, and just to correct me if I'm wrong, but I had kind of thought that when the option was given to all of the creatures that were within old Anacra, back when it was the Dawn, if you wanted to keep your mutable form, then you stayed in the underworld, the otherworld, or the overworld, and you became a supernatural entity that was able to be more mutable in this fixated world. And if you wanted to try out, hey, I like this form, I've grown accustomed to it, I want to be this form. Those were the original like elves and things like that needed to be. They still had a connection to their old selves. Were like, hey, Fae and elves have a similar connection, but it was that choice when the worlds were crafted and created. You had to choose either a more mutable or a solid form.
Yeah, I've messed that up a little bit with some of the Alfar, because a lot of the original Alfar were extremely nostalgic about the ways things were before. Ioth specifically being like the king of nostalgia. So I think that not all entities had the ability to
choose.
It's thundering.
Dude, I heard that too. Yeah, when you looked like this, I looked like that because I was like, wait a minute.
We were just both like, what the?
God's outside and he's mad. That's what everybody in Vinder's Kingdom is like.
Exactly. Oh,
God's outside and he's mad.
Who said the name? Yeah, so I think that it was a little bit more complicated than that. But like, I can give the name of one Fae who was confirmed a child of Dawn. And I'm not going to go into this. This is not the topic of today's Lunch and Lore. Iardanel, father of Itarlam, grandfather of Fuamnak Korkre, aka the Lady Rowan, and Neve of the Golden Hair. Like, he was he was a child of Dawn. And there are some others, like a lot of the big Arc Fae were, but not all of them it had something to do with their status, their not status like social status, but like their condition, their state of mind, where they were in the Dawn world, were they like, how strong were they at the moment, that kind of stuff.
Now, mate, wouldn't it make sense that technically it could still work that way if you had these, beings were given the choice of either mutability or, stuck form? And you can still have people like Ioth who were like, I miss the good old days where it was like buyer's remorse. Like, yep, we were trying out this mortal form thing and there was no way back. And now we're going to do everything we can to try to climb back to how it was.
Yeah, I think we need to work it out a little bit, but I do think there's some wiggle room there.
Or it could have been like, the sovereigns just said, hey, look, we need to fill out all of these realms. Not everybody can pick the other world. Not everybody can pick the, this realm or that realm. We have to split things up between. Yeah.
I got it. The children of Luminius became elves, specifically.
That makes sense. Okay.
And they had to take those forms because their city got smoked and they were in exile. They didn't have like all that freedom. Other entities that were elsewhere doing different things may not have had that, but the children of Luminius had so much in common with each other, and like their home was destroyed. They were diminished because in the Dawn, like an entity, a mind, can just seize the dawn around them like in dream and then make of themselves whatever they wanted to. But the children of Luminius had so little when they fled that that's all they were able to bring with them. And so they had to become finite.
Mate, what about this? So playing, yes, and playing off what you said, originally, when the invaders from the Outer Dike showed up, they were, very locked into their forms. It was like, look, man, we're fiends, we're devils, we're demons, we're everything in between. We're bad. We're the bad guys. And
we're the bad.
When they were fighting these beings that, there could have been any number of possible beings in Anacra, but from what I've recalled, a lot of people were not fart clouds, but there were a lot of just like people who would roll around in this gaseous form and like just taking a form when it pleased them. And they were like, I'll be whatever I feel like. And so it's really difficult to fight fiends when you're a pile of gas that plays music all day. And so if you have the entities of Luminius took these forms, these very Eldar-like forms, to fight against who they were against, and when their city was destroyed and they were left with little else, then they kept those forms when when things were ported over. And so it's like it was both their strength, but then their something that held them back, because they kind of gave up this bit of divinity that they were. The plan was to be able to, if everything went well, return back to how things were, and then they were stuck there, always clutching at what was once theirs, and they were the one that kind of gave that up to to do the fighting.
I like
the
that.
Lament of Laminius.
It needs additional detail. It needs further development, but that's a great idea.
Yeah,
let's work with that.
Look, you're the detail guy.
We completely failed. I was like, oh, don't worry, we're not going to get distracted. We're going to go back to Irelek. That the lie detector determined that to be a lie.
We were coming up with peoples and organizations, and then we took questions from chat.
Yeah,
but you know what? I think it'll be a good springboard point from next time. We've got a lot of good points here that we've already listed down, and now we can just kind of delve into it, because now the next time we can talk about not just the peoples but the organizations and what their different tasks were, and we can really get into that nitty gritty.
The one thing that I want to say before either God smites us down and annihilates us, I hear that. That's nutty.
That sounds bad.
Yeah, Matt and I live like within 5-10 miles less of each other.
Yeah.
Without giving away our, without further doxing ourselves. But one thing I want to say is that in our heads, in all the campaigns we've run that feature Irelek, we've always focused on its fighting school status. And I think that was always the case, but it was simply one amongst many other disciplines. Yes. But one of the chief changes when the death of Anacra and the demonic Imperiums began is that Irelek went from just a incubator of wisdom and civilization to a training school for fighting the Infernals.
Are we going to talk about that next time? Because the Irelek takes on a very different form as time goes on.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about it this time because we have 2 minutes. But that's one thing I wanted to explain. I wanted to say that, one, because it's going to be important for what we're working on, and two, because fans of Ioth Academy who know that Ariana went to Irelek to train to potentially take up the mantle of the Earth Sovereign.
Which is wild, by the way. I love that.
It's, Titan Sovereign, her destiny is not yet determined, but they've realized that she has that special capacity. But I need to give more context. Is a pretty good title. Suzerain is a good title. I wanted to sort of confer with people that while Irelek originally had this very, civ dev purpose, when they saw it in the campaign and the next time they saw it, that has been balanced with the need to train people in combat and magic to hold out in a world swarmed by Infernals. Go ahead. No, you say it.
Oh, I was going to say, especially because, and again, without giving too much away for what's going to be going forward on this channel, we've already lost one avatar form with Anacra. Those of us who, again, slightly spoilers for those of us who took place in Curse of Tamrian, it's coming to light that Liban may not be as together as everyone once had thought. And Sin is a very enigmatic being, either in your face or completely cloistering and hiding away. And as time goes on, it may be Vendor themselves who is the only one hiding away in their castle, dictating from afar how militarized the Isles of Irelek may be and what's going to come from that. So definitely not just here on Luncheon Lore.
That's a good point. Damn.
That's a very good point. So stay tuned. There's a lot. War of the Sun is going to be ramping up in the coming times, and this is going to be the fulcrum point from which it begins.
More about that later. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you next week on Luncheon Lore. Bye.
Bye.
Vendor, shut up!